you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hey folks, it's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, the Iron Lady sings that makes it official. It's not official until the Iron Lady sings it. I don't even get up in the morning until I hear that on my alarm. Welcome to the big show. As always, folks, for 16 years, 2,800 episodes, we bring you the Chris Voss Show, 48 new shows a month. One of the oldest living, surviving, active podcasts in the world, or at least recording multiple times a day. Let's put it that way. I think we're the only one that's doing 3 shows a day because we're crazy and we love our audience that much. We're willing to do whatever it takes for them, but don't ask me to do 4. Every now and then I do 4. So anyway, guys, go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss, and all those crazy places on the internet. In fact, we're going to have someone on here who's popular on TikTok, so I'll throw mine in. He's more popular than I am. Chris Voss 1 on the TikTokity. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. Today, we have an amazing young man on the show. We're going to be talking about his insights, his books, his life story, his journey. You're going to learn stuff, and it's going to be good. So stay tuned. Turn off everything and just put on your earmuffs and focus on the sound. His book is entitled On the Road Again, A Truck Driver's Highway to National Trial Law and Business Success, out February 28th, 2025. Albert Parnell joins us on the show today. We're going to be talking to him about On the Road Again. Isn't there a song? Shouldn't I play something? Wait, we might have to pay for that if I do.
Nelson.
What's that?
Willie Nelson, of course.
Willie Nelson. There we go. Does that make it so that since I said the line, I don't have to pay the fee?
You don't have to pay no fee.
Ernie folks, too.
Yes. Did Pat McAfee write your introduction?
Who? Pat McAfee?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It sounded like it was pretty funny.
We try. I wrote the introduction and had a really great radio DJ on Fiverr do it because.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, because we're rich. $5 is $5.
I was a radio DJ once.
Were you? All right, we're gonna have fun on the show.
KVTA, the voice of the White River Valley.
Hey, there you got the voice of the river valley. So Albert Parnell, you heard him. Yes, he's in the background. His life has been surprising, adventurous, and deeply rewarding. Unlike mine. Mine's been painful and just agony. At the center of his story is a value he learned from his father, a commitment to provide his family with unwavering love, dedication, and support. Through his life, he was focused on giving his wife and children every opportunity to pursue their own paths with independence, generosity, and vision. His journey began early, working at age 8, and followed an unlikely and colorful path that include driving a tractor, teaching high schools, singing in bars, and working as a radio DJ. There we have it. Eventually he discovered his calling as a lawyer doing civil rights work in Atlanta during the late 1960s. And in his very first jury trial, he won a moment that sparked a lifelong pursuit to become an outstanding trial lawyer. Over the next several decades, he built a nationally respected career as a defense trial attorney. He served as first-year trial lawyer in more than 300 cases across more than 30 states and acted as a national counsel for several Fortune 500 companies. Known for creative trial strategies and compelling courtroom presentations, he helped guide the successful resolution of thousands of complex civil and toxic tort cases. Albert Parnell, get up in the jury booth or get up in the witness booth and let's hear what you have to say there, buddy.
I just got sworn in.
Sworn in. Yeah, we got him sworn in there, bailiff? Yeah, we do. Right. No one knew we had a bailiff on the show. So, Albert, give us your .coms. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
My .com is www.alparnell.com. They find me at Success by Parnell on TikTok.
So give us a 30,000 overview. What's in this book that you have, On the Road Again?
Mostly it's a book that I wrote since I was gone so long trying cases. My children, grandchildren, don't really know the particulars of where I came from, what I did, how I got there. And then second part is grew up pretty much penniless, had loving parents, but not a lot of money, and overcame a lot of obstacles. And I'm still there trying to help other people overcome those same obstacles, and hope that the book will help some people, if they read it, to see that there's a way to the end.
When I did the joke, oh, that's unfortunate, I meant when you said you had loving parents, I said that was unfortunate. That's what that joke was about. You got the poor in as I was executing the joke. They're like, God, Chris hates poor people. Now, you wanted to have your family understand what you did and all the work and love you did for him and sacrifice and stuff. Do they have to read the book to make sure they get in the will? Do you have one of those things going on? My kids, I think, are pretty sure about that they're loved. Oh. And as a matter of fact, unlike most people, every bit of investment which I have, my kids get copies of it. My wife gets a copy of it. The one thing I'm pretty sure about is that they will not fight when it's over. That's always good. You could put in one of those non-fight clauses you probably know about as an attorney, where if they fight, then no one gets anything. I was going to say, fortunately, again, through both my wives, because I wasn't there a lot, but I have 2 lawyers, a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army, Jacksonville, one of them, and an executive at Truist Bank. So I don't really worry about them going forward. That sounds like you got them launched really good there. So tell us a little bit. Let's kind of start from the beginning. You started working when you were 8. I started working, I was like, I think 10 or 11. And of course, before that, I was mowing lawns for money. I think that's when I got a paper route. That's what, at 10, I think. And then, so you started working early. Tell us about this, and what was the proponent that kind of built this work ethic that you put into your whole life?
In 1948, because I was born in 41, there's no news. You don't know about anything about life, and you really don't know a lot about money. And I lived in what you probably call a project now. And I came in one summer day and said, my friend Buddy has a baseball bat. I need a bat. Dad said, I can't afford it. And I said, but I need the bat. He said, well, then tomorrow we're going to get up. This was in Alexandria, Virginia. And after school, we're going to knock on every business door and get you a job. And so we went by a delicatessen at the corner of down on Washington Street in Alexandria. And the guy looked at me and said, how old are you? And I told him. He said, never hired anybody that age. What can you do? And I said, anything you tell me. And so then it became 48 hours a week at 9 cents an hour.
Wow. 9 cents an hour. Dude.
Exactly right. But that was a lot of money back then.
Oh, yeah. I remember back then, not back to your time when it came to pricing and stuff, but like in the 70s, you could buy a Snickers for 10 cents or 15 cents. And I was in the store actually last night, headed to the gym, and I just wanted a candy bar for the sugar. They're like all $3, $3 and something for the candy bar. I'm just like, all right, these are 25 cents, maybe max. But I don't know. We sound like one of those 2 old people that stand on the lawn and yell at the kids to get off it. So,
but it's a story to tell, because I'm sure you had a similar experience. There were in the summer there were 5 guys and 4 girls. We got on our bikes at 9 o'clock, and we would go sometimes 50 or 20 miles away. There were no cell phones. Your parents didn't know where you were going, and you just had to be back by 5.
My parents didn't care. I was Gen X. We're the latchkey kids. They actually had to make a commercial during our childhood for people that was like a PSA that said, hey, it's 10 o'clock at night. Do you know where your kids are? They haven't been home for 3 days. And our parents are sitting there with Kent cigarettes, menthols, and bottles of aged whiskey and, I don't know, Pabst Blue Ribbon or something. And they're like, honey, we have kids? And they're like, yeah, I think we got some kids. They're out there somewhere. I don't know. But they'll come back eventually.
I know Mom and Dad always used to wonder where I was, but
did they?
For whatever reason, they never asked.
Huh? Yeah. My parents would ask, and we'd be like, I don't think legally our attorneys have said that we can tell you what we're up to. So, in fact, when I wrote my book, Beacons Leadership, my mom read some of it, and she goes, I did not know that was going on in high school. And I'm like, well, I didn't tell you.
Most people today, when I went to high school in 1955, there were 10 fraternities and 20 sororities, and they had parties every Friday and Saturday night.
Yeah.
And most people look at high school parties like that, and it was an everyday occurrence.
Oh yeah, those are the best, man. Yeah, the best. They can't do that anymore. Anything that's fun is illegal now, I think, pretty much. Well,
we didn't have to have ID cards when you were 14 in Washington.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, we were building forts, and we go wander through like empty buildings that were being built and shenanigans, and I mean, it's a crazy time, but it was an interesting time to grow up, and we had to be outside and
right.
learn things. Yeah. You learn things.
I think one of the funniest stories is in the old days at my place, there were 52 families, and at 6:00 on a nice night, everybody out there talking. And then in 1959, someone got a television, invited everybody over, everybody a television. And after that time, nobody ever came outside to talk.
There you go. I say that television now, it's the phones. Everyone's just walking around, phone zombies, I call them. So starting work at 8, what was some of the things you learned? What did that do for you at 8?
The first thing I think it did was independence, because here I am. I could go buy Coca-Cola, and my buddies couldn't go do that. And there was a sense that took me apart. It made them bully me a little bit because I had the money and they didn't. Yeah. But so the first thing I think was independence. And I think as you began to get independence, you could rely upon that independence to accept some risks that you might not otherwise take. And I've always believed that I won't say always believe, but I've become in my teaching, which I do, in belief that if you don't risk, you can't ever move forward. You have to risk. Yes, you have to make those risks be reasonable, and I think so. Going back to your question, once I was beginning to understand, have independence, have some money to do some things, I think it gave me a will to do even more.
Yeah. The will to do more. It's kind of interesting. You learn pride for your work, I think, at that age. You're
absolutely.
Proud of yourself. You have resilience. It teaches you a lot of things. And it's hard too, because you're a kid. I remember when I had my paper out at 10, I was like, I don't want to go to work, Sometimes I would mow the front lawn of a house, and I'd just be too tired to mow the back. And I tell my client, hey, I'm going to come back tomorrow and get the other side here. And,
I think that I had paper rights as well. Sometimes I was doing 2 jobs. But the other thing I was going to say, and I'm sure you believe it, that you learned a little bit of politeness. You learned a little bit about how to be social with people as you were meeting those people. In Alexandria, they built something called Hunting Towers, which was like back in 1949 would have been like a Ritz-Carlton today. And so the people that you were meeting, they had nice clothes. I didn't have nice clothes, but you had to be polite. You had to learn how to be polite and be social.
Yeah. It was hard knocking on doors to pitch lawn mowing services. You're like this tiny thing, and the big scary adult opens the door, and a lot of times, sometimes they weren't nice. They'd be mean to you. It was the 80s. Some people weren't really happy during that time. Big surprise. But yeah, it kind of gave you some gumption, and sometimes a lot of people would be cool with me, and yeah, you learned a lot of early skills that some people don't learn till adulthood, or nowadays, I don't know, millennials and Gen Z doesn't learn till 35 or something.
I totally agree with you.
I've seen some things. So there was a lesson your father gave you and shaped you. Tell us about that. When did that fall upon you, and you took that to heart?
I just think, I'm not sure which one of the ones you're talking about or referencing.
Wow, that's right. Probably lots he taught you. Your father gave you a simple rule. Your job in life is to support your family with love, loyalty, and effort.
Absolutely. And, it took me a while, honestly, to realize that that's what I had to do, because when I was doing civil rights work, not getting a lot of money, yes, I was a lawyer, but I divorced from my first wife, who's wonderful, Frances, and I had 2 boys, and I had to actually go back and look, and Dad reinforced to me that my job from that point forward was to, take care of 2 young kids and my family, and now I had an ex-wife. So I did 3 things, which most people don't understand. The first thing is I swore I would never turn the television on again. The rest of my life.
Really?
That I would never read a newspaper, and I would not listen to radio.
And now you're on TikTok.
Basically, from 1974 to 2020, I did not any of those things. I can't play trivia. I'm not a good trivia person.
I mean, but you focus on your work, your family,
Right.
as we were talking pre-show, you had to spend a lot of time away from your family because you were stuck in courts around the nation and, working hard, getting money for them and paying for those school bills and all that stuff. But,
Absolutely.
It's hard when you don't have your dad around sometimes. And you're like, is he really working somewhere? Like I sent my kids to military school and faked my death and moved to a different time zone so they can't ever find me. So they're in wonderment too. Yeah, where's Dad? And I'm that guy who left for milk and never came back. I don't have kids, folks. That's the joke. But that's really interesting. You took and did that, man. We need to have more people do that in today's world. Turn off the TV.
For me, it was a little bit different. I mean, yes, if my daughter or my son wanted to go to a movie, that would be the exception I'd make. But if you're going to go, let's just say, to watch a movie for 4 hours, and back then, if I could bill $75 an hour for those 4 hours and give that to support the family, then I made the decision that I'd bill those $75 an hour for 4 hours. And so I just, I got to a point where I would work 2,500, 3,000 hours a year as a lawyer.
Now, one of the things, did we get a plug-in for your TikTok at the beginning of the show when I asked for plugs?
We did.
Right,
we just gave the title of it.
I just think it's funny you turned off TV for all those years, probably saving up for all the brain cells you'll lose on TikTok, maybe. I don't know. I tease.
No, actually, I was in one of my had a Cheers bar called Kaleidoscope here in Brookhaven, Georgia, and a young girl came up to me and she said, "I hear that you help people start businesses, and I want to start a social media company. Will you teach me how?" And I said, "I'd certainly try." We started a social media company right at the end of 2020. And she said, "You should be, you've lectured all over the world and all, you should be on TikTok lecturing." And that's how I got there.
Wow. And so you lectured on top of it. Now, somewhere in there, let's see if we can get the timeline down, lay a foundation for it. So somewhere in there, you decided to go into trucking from some of the early things you were doing at work. What was the proponent there? How did that start?
I'll tell you what it was. Because I was working 2 jobs all through high school and pretty much a party boy. I graduated last in my high school. And so consequently, I had a job as a lifeguard, which I didn't like. And I had a friend who was doing what he called humping, humping, carrying furniture in and out of houses.
Humping over the back.
He was making more money than me. So I left and did that for a week, and they didn't pay. I worked 100 hours that week, and they didn't pay overtime.
What?
So we're talking 1959 now.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
And I went to the only place that paid overtime, which was Paxton Van Lines, and they said, "We're only hiring a tractor-trailer driver." And I said, "I can do that." Of course, I was lying, and I never really driven one. And they gave me a job as a tractor-trailer driver. And, I'm civil rights. Back then, we're 59. And here I am, a 17-year-old white boy, getting a tractor-trailer with 2 black gentlemen. And the guy beside me said, "White boy, you don't know how to do this, do you?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "No, but I need a job just like you. Will you teach me?" And he said, "Okay." So he taught me. So then 3 days later, I was 17 years old, driving a 40-foot tractor trailer from Washington, D.C. to Northport, Long Island.
Oh, wow. And what made you want to go into that? I mean, what was the proponent? Was it just opportunity or the money? It was the money.
Yeah.
Chasing the money.
Getting overtime. It was still 75 cents an hour, but I was getting overtime.
Yeah. And driving your truck, you're kind of your own boss. You don't have somebody up in your face, 8 hours a day, maybe.
So, breaker 19.
Yeah. Those are back in the days, the old CBs and stuff, huh?
Absolutely.
Oh, God, I love those.
Absolutely.
My grandfather he used to be a trucker back in the days, and he used to tell me all these great stories. Back then, you could drive through Las Vegas and stop for blackjack downtown, and I could always come out ahead. Back then, you only had one deck blackjack, so you couldn't get cheated too much.
Las Vegas was my city from 74 to 82.
Was it really?
I told you, I had to become earning money, so I became a bookie.
Oh, wow.
And I started playing high-stakes poker in Vegas every other week.
Uh-huh.
And as I went through my law career and got better and better, my bookie operation got bigger and bigger. Mm-hmm. And then the mafia in 82 told me that perhaps I should not do it any longer.
Ah. Now, you were attorney at the same time when you were running a bookie?
I was.
Wow.
You could do it back then. At first, I said, I don't, because I was giving all my money away, to my first wife and all that sort of thing. And originally I was going to, you said I wanted to be a singer. I got in the music business with a man named Alex Cooley, who was a big rock promoter. And so we worked with the Allman Brothers beginning in 71, and I was going to actually leave in 74 and go into the rock music business. But the money I'd saved up to be with Alex to start, I gave to my first wife in the divorce. And that's when I had to go do other things. So this is my day, when the Atlanta Journal-Constitution put the line in the paper every day of the week, then if you were a lawyer at that point, you could call my secretary and she could take your bet. But it couldn't be more than $50 because I wouldn't, then it got bigger and bigger. It's a way around everything. So it's about, remember I talked about risk when you were doing my bicycle? That was just another risk.
Oh, wow. That is wild. The modeling on you. Have you been back to Vegas recently and seen how it's grown?
I have. I did a non-rev seminar for a lawyer company beginning in 83. So the first thing I did, Chris, was I started a seminar on the first Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of March Madness in 1983. So I was actually at every March Madness from 1980 in Vegas from 1983 to 2014.
Wow.
So I've seen it change a lot.
Yeah. It's grown. It
has like crazy.
Crazy, man. Like I saw a map one time of like the 80s, and it was like, I think even in the 90s, it was like 2 lanes going down the middle of the valley.
Oh, absolutely.
The freeway. And I was like, what? I remember the old spaghetti bowl. You go through downtown to, do the roundabout. And it's crazy how it's grown. I remember I first moved out to Summerlin when it was all just land. You drive out there and fall off the face of the earth. And there's no gas stations. There was like a bank there. And I'd have to wander over to the new apartments that were built. And I'm just like, I'm out here. I think we had wolves beyond. I was at the very end of the row there, but it's crazy. How long did you do? Go ahead.
I was going to say, the Desert Inn, which no longer exists, was there. I remember when they tore down, I can't remember the name of it, to build the big ponds and everything. So it's all changed.
The Wynn?
It started, yeah.
Yeah. I think, what was it before that? I remember there was that game that Steve Wynn played to get he bought this piece that he optioned that was next to the Caesar property. And I want to build a casino here unless you give me some money. And so they paid him off like some huge amount of money so they get that piece. And then he just built next door across from the freeway.
Of course. Absolutely.
Thanks for the money, guys. I built your competitor on my way.
And that was a beautiful place too.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's still my favorite casino to take people to if they want to visit. Oh yeah. I mean, those gardens that are in the back.
Oh God, they're awesome. Those are so awesome.
Yeah. And people love them.
Back in the day, they paid $1 million a month to redo all of the decorations back there.
I think they do it every month or 3 months now. I think they do it every 3 months now, maybe. I don't know. But then there's a chocolate fountain right behind the gardens. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yeah, I have.
But, yeah. And it has, I think it's like a ton or 2 tons of chocolate that flow through it. So I always take my mom there, and anybody that visits, especially women, they love the chocolate place. And then they love standing in front of the chocolate fountain just pouring down. It's just insane. I'm just. Do you
remember Olives, which was the original restaurant in there that overlooked?
I think
the water factor? Yeah,
I think so. I went to the opening in 1998.
Yeah. We might have seen each other.
We might have. We were probably hanging around throwing our money away in a pinball machine or something. Pinball machine?
No, I stopped when the Mafia told me to stop in 82. I stopped.
That's probably a good thing. They were still running Mob until
absolutely
94.
And I was up in New York during that period of time too. Which was the John Gotti era. So it's
John Gotti. There you go. So back to trucking. Hey, my audience is right now going, I thought you said you had a book about trucking, Chris. This is the gambling show now. So how long were you a trucker before you said, I may want to expand my income here?
I will tell you exactly. I'd been a trucker for about a month and a half. I was talking to these 2 dudes that I thought ran the world as tractor trailer drivers. And I said, what are y'all doing about retirement? And one of them, Wally, said, why would we? We're only 19. Yeah. And I took one look there, and I went to the owner. I said, do you think I can go to college? And he said, I'll help you get in. So
Really?
I entered college. I still drove the tractor trailer, but I went through college in that tractor trailer and then law school at Vanderbilt in that tractor trailer.
Wow. So you're studying in the trailer between drives and lot lizards.
Sort of. I mean, I would, the owner of Paxton worked with me. So when I was in law school, whenever there was a job, because I was in Nashville, I'd do Thanksgiving, I'd do Christmas, I'd do spring, and then I'd do all summer.
Huh? So now I think you started out in civil rights. Do I have that correct or understand that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. What drew you to that?
What drew me to them was back when I was 7 years old, across the street from our white apartment community, there was a duplex with black children. And I was the only one white guy who played with the black children, my favorite being Alberta. When I was 7 years old, I went across the street to tell Alberta that we could walk to school together. And she said, Al, we're not going to the same school. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, you're white, I'm black. And that began my pivot through all of that. And then when I was driving the tractor trailer, a lot of the employees were black, and they'd never had a friend who was going to college and law school. So I started sort of representing them within the trucking industry. Oh. And so that's how I ultimately got there. And I did civil rights when I was in Vanderbilt. So
defend those folks. And, the great thing about law is, number one, it's given to us by the Constitution. We used to have one. It's really cool. It's 2026.
I hope we do.
If you're watching this 10 years from now. You and me. And law is an interesting thing. It's a wonderful thing. It's if I could go back, I started my first company at 18, so I kind of threw myself right into the shit. But if I could go back, I would go to school to be an attorney because I love law. And I don't know, the power of it is so amazing.
It is amazing. And for me, I literally loved it. I fell in love with not the law, because I need you to just think for a moment. A person who is a trial lawyer is not a lawyer. When you walk into that room, just like you trying behind that microphone to convince people that you can't see about something, every time I walk in, I'm an actor. Mm-hmm. I'm putting together a script, just like any kind of playwright does, that I hope 12 people will follow. Mm-hmm. And, yes, I'm a lawyer, but the reality is I'm an egotistical lecturer, whatever you want to call it,
salesman
who enjoys being in front of people, therefore trying to convince them every day of the belief that I have.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
what I fell in love with.
I found helps of that blackmail. No, I'm just kidding. You can't blackmail a jury. That's illegal. But I just figured it would be a good joke. I remember, so let me try and keep this story concise. So I had I had some evil attorney friends, and they taught me something very important: to always appeal everything, even speeding tickets. And I had a BMW with a 540i when it first came out, and it had the 7 Series engine and the 5 body. And boy, did I rack up some speeding tickets. They taught me how to fight speeding tickets and, defend my rights. And
mine was the original 6 Series.
The 6 Series, yeah, that's beautiful. 2 doors, no 4.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. I always wanted those because I've been single all my life. I'd rather have a 2-door. And so I remember there was a case that I had where I got pulled over. The guy was an undercover, driver's license division guy. For some reason, I guess they're technically cops. And he was in his private car with his wife, probably going out to dinner on Friday night. I blew by him speeding, clearly. And he, as soon as I passed, flipped on his lights and undercover whatever and pulled me over. Then he claimed in court that he had paced me for several miles and then turned on his lights. So he knew my speed. His wife was in the car as a witness. And so I was aghast that he lied. Now, I was speeding, but his... the discrepancy was, how fast was I actually going? Yeah. And if I know the laws. If you haven't, geared that speed gun, you haven't calibrated it and maintained it and all that sort of stuff, it can err. I'm like, if there's enough of a, what's the thing in law that you guys use where it has to be undeniable sort of fact or proven facts? I forget what it's called.
Like probable cause, you mean?
No, when a jury decides something, they have to decide that there's enough reasonable evidence that's been provided to claim the case. So I asked this beautiful black lady, she was not going to put up with shit from anybody. And I asked wanted the wife as a witness that he had not done what he testified, that he had paced me. And boy, he was not happy about that. He was very angry, probably because he knew his wife would probably tell the truth. And so I called her as a witness and asked for a subpoena. And I remember the judge looked at me when she decided between the argument. She goes, Chris, I want to tell you something. There was probably a time in your youth where you had this cute face that could lie and get away with stuff. She says, but that time is long gone. And I believe that you were probably speeding. But I tell you, I'm granting your motion because you are doing what more people need to do. You are using your rights in the Constitution. You're using your rights in the law. And while I do believe that you're probably speeding, I'm going to give you the opportunity to defend yourself. And she talked to the court too, the people in the court. And she says, more people need to utilize their rights and defend their rights in court. So, but yeah, it was kind of funny. I
totally agree.
She's like, that cute face of yours is gone, Chris. No,
it's like the eagle's lying eyes are gone.
Oh yeah. She let me know, and I was not going to screw with her because she was one of those big ladies that would kick your ass. Yes. She'd probably throw me in prison. You spend a lot of time kind of in the trucking field through your attorney career. Is that correct?
Once I got into the trial law stuff, civil rights, but after I left that, I did some trucking work, but mostly beginning in 75 and a little bit after that, I began defending asbestos lawsuits.
Oh, really?
At the beginning of that. And so the more I did, the more I got offered to do it. So it became my specialty. And so from then until 2018 or 2019, that's pretty much what I did.
Wow. That's got to be some interesting work on asbestos. It was amazing how much that stuff was like everywhere.
It was everywhere, and it's really surprising. And
I've got some in my coffee right now.
For a defense lawyer, and one of my best friends was the plaintiff's lawyer that I was always against. We became best friends. But, it's just funny because the disease that most of them got, mesothelioma, was a disease that was caused by asbestos. But the question was, is it your asbestos or somebody else's asbestos?
Oh, wow.
So let me give you one example, John. It was like from a lung cancer cigarette thing. If you defended Marlboro and the guy said he smoked one Marlboro in his life, but he smoked 5 million Philip Morris, then you would argue that one cigarette didn't cause it, right? So if he only used your product 1 day or 2 days, but he used another product for 30 years, you'd argue your two days didn't cause it.
Yeah. I mean, asbestos was everywhere back then. It was in like every building. I think it was in all my grandparents' roofs. Remember the old popcorn roofs with the sparklies in them?
Not just that, it was in every refinery, had it all over the place, air conditioning, everything.
Yeah. I still smoke a bowl of asbestos just for old time's sakes. Just for old time's sakes, Get that.
The weed of your day.
The weed of your day. You scrape a little bit off of my grandparents' thing. I remember that. We would be like, what is this stuff made of? And we scraped some off one time and fell on us. That and the time my grandfather had us scrape down by hand as children the lead paint off of his garage so he could repaint it. That was cute. That was cool. I look back on that and like, this explains why I have a podcast. And you're a lawyer.
Where did you grow up, if I might ask?
I grew up in California and then moved to Utah, I guess as some form of punishment that some evil my parents did or something. That, or I think they just mixed drugs. It was the 60s. So I think they mixed a lot of drugs one night and they woke up. And those are the only two reasons I can come up with why anyone would want to move to Utah.
If they would have, it was in Northern California, certainly.
California is good.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I had a lot of cases out there.
I'll bet.
I won't get into it, but I had the first drug case.
Oh, really?
81. Used to go to the Troubadour all the time in LA when I wanted to be a singer. Yeah.
You wanted to be a singer too. I think I read that in your bio.
I did. I went to school with Mama Cass and Jim Morrison.
Oh, really?
They were in my high school.
Hopefully, you didn't do the
back
same drugs as Jim did, because
I was never a drug person. I had a hard time getting rid of alcohol, but I never did drugs. So vodka is my nightly 7:00 drink of choice. But so we would go over to M Street and try to sing. Back then you didn't have speakers; you just had an acoustic guitar, and you did the best you could. But I didn't make it as a singer.
Yeah. Plus, if you're doing follow up on Jim Morrison, you're following that act. That's got to be. You're like, what did he do?
Everything.
He took his clothes off and danced toward, he was always getting arrested all the time back in the day. He wasn't doing anything nobody does now, but I think even Elvis was arrested for gyrating his hips or something, didn't he?
I think that was Elvis.
Yeah, suggestively gyrating your hips. Can you imagine if they had Instagram back then? Boy, they would.
Oh my God.
Kind of woken up quick.
Instagram is getting more than ever before. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's a dating app pretty much at this point. That or an OnlyFans entrance lead in. So you win your first jury trial, and that's pretty good. You win the first one out the gate. Is that correct?
I did. I've actually, in all the cases I tried, only lost 2.
Really?
Yeah. What's
the key to that?
Again, I think being a good actor. I think you have to know your case. You have to know your witnesses and all that sort of thing. But you have to be able to read a jury. And the other thing I did, I was one of the first to ever do this, is I started doing it in 1968. I hired a psychologist to go with me to help me select jurors. And I did that in my career. And because I relied upon them to be able to after you're questioning a prospective juror, the answers, they're evaluating the answers, and they can help you try to figure out who can believe you, who's looking at your body language and liking it, things like that. Very subjective, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of weirdness as to why people decide things sometimes.
When you stop and think about it, when you stop, you have to train if you're a trial lawyer. For instance, if you're going to try to get a jury in Miami, as an example, then you're going to get a lot in Latin influenced people. But if you're in Oakland, you're going to get more with the Philippine background than you've ever imagined.
Oh, really?
Yeah, or if you're in Texas, you're going to. So my point is, you have to really study the demographics of every place where you're going to try a case to see who your likely jurors are going to be and what their cultural background is.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I imagine and you were one of the first people to do the psychology thing on them.
As far as I know, and to use a computer. I bought a computer in '79, and I remember lecturing to about 400 lawyers in Washington, D.C. in 1981, marry a computer and save your life.
Marry a computer and save your life. I think that's what I did. That's why.
An old Tandy computer.
Old Tandy. Remember those Tandys? Didn't Tandy before that computer? Didn't there used to be a leather thing?
I have no idea.
Maybe that's a different leather company. I had leather. They taught us a lot in school. The important things that we were going to use for the future. We had to learn metal shop, leather shop, and wood shop because God knows I needed those skills.
we had to learn printing in our high school. We had
printing. Yeah. I bought some of those early computers and printers, and learning printing was probably a whole college course in and of itself, because half the time the damn thing wouldn't work or pair or whatever was going on. It's you got paper stuck in it. You're like, I cleaned all the paper out. No, it's still stuck. Oh my God. So I had quite a few in the office. I had a baseball bat, and I had quite a few rip it out of the wall, throw it on the ground, and beat it to death with a baseball bat, like that Office Space movie scene. I did that quite a few times in front of horrified employees until my partners took me aside and said, we need to get you some help.
Maybe it was the same kind of baseball bat that I wanted back in 1948 that I went to get the job for.
Might have been. Did you put rusted spikes through it so the blood would stick better? No, I'm just kidding. What do you hope people come away with when they read about your book, your life, and all that good stuff? Or is it really just for your kids to guilt and shame them as to all the heavy work you did for them?
No, it really isn't guilt and shame. I think that there's a few more other things. I think from a financial standpoint, I wanted to try to give an insight to people who didn't start off with a lot of money, how they could generate their own income into a way to become wealthy or to certainly be more affluent than they ever really thought about. and how they could listen. So just an example, I don't know the extent that you looked at the book, but 1977, I was hanging out in bars, which I do all the time now. And there were these two pilots that said, FedEx has just started, and they can't go to these little cities. We're trying to buy 10 planes. And we're looking for $600,000. And we can't. Can you try to get us $600,000?
Oh.
So why not?
Now, this was FedEx themselves or people who are going to work?
No, FedEx. No. FedEx had just started, I think, in 71, and UPS right in that general period of time. The whole thing of taking packages from town to town, but the big planes they used couldn't go to the smaller venue. So this idea was buy little planes to go to the smaller venues to bring them back and forth to where FedEx, UPS was. And I went to a bunch of banks. I was able to get them I think it was 500,000, maybe 6. Got 10 airplanes. A year later, I got married to my second wife. I sold my share back to them to buy a house. Wow. So my point being, I took the risk and found it, and all the way through, to get into restaurants in 2003, and I've been a part of 9 restaurants now. I have 7, I think. But so it's how do you get ahead? How do you manage? How do you have the vision to go forward? That was the biggest part, both for my children and anybody else who'd read it. And the other thing is, I know I have a sense that you feel the same way. I feel like all of my career I've been trying to teach, whether it's lawyers or people in marketing or how to get ahead, and I just keep wanting to give back. And so that was another part of the book, was to try to give back.
Yeah. Educate people, show people things. That's what we love about the Chris Voss Show. People come and they share their stories of life. Stories are the fabric of our lives. I mean, without our stories.
Absolutely.
If you took all my stories away, you'd be like, hey, Chris, what's up? I'd be like, I don't know. I'm just sitting here looking at the wall. And
the trouble is not telling the same story twice.
The trouble is not telling the same story twice. Well, if you're married, you got to tell some story. Now, on your TikTok, 55-year trial lawyer, civil rights activist on DOJ files. You've got something on here I saw. Where is it? Barstool Business Advice Part 9. Is that a series you do? Barstool?
It is. As a matter of fact, the second book I'm writing now, because I've been in the business so long now, is Barstool Events and Conversations. So I've spent a lot of time writing down funny things that happen. But what I typically do, because I'm in a bar every night at 7 o'clock, or my wife and I are, is I'll turn to the person next to me and I'll say, what do you do? And then they'll tell me they're somebody famous, or not. I don't mean necessarily celebrity famous, but they're from big law, or they own a company. And the next thing I'll say is, did anyone ever tell you anything or ask you anything about how to succeed that you would want to tell a young person? And they do. Never be late. If you're always on time, just never be late, because you're stealing time from somebody else when you're late and you're being rude, or always dress appropriately for every occasion, whatever it is. I was in New York the other day, and American Airlines, ran an American Airlines pilot at the bar, and he was telling me that he had really hard times in his life, but his mother saw him crying one day and said, what's wrong? And he told her, and she said, son, it takes a lot to be successful. If it didn't take a lot, everybody would be successful. So you keep forward, which I did. And that's now one of the chapters in my new book.
I like that. I usually like to go out and talk to people. I'm annoying that way, and make friends with strangers. I'll get a whole 2 rows of people laughing on a plane, and even like an elevator. Any one of those spaces where it's weird, like an elevator, where people are like, don't say anything, we might get murdered, like you're in an elevator. And so I make friends. Sometimes I just like rebelling, I guess, against the quiet and the uncomfortedness. But, I like entertaining like you. I like entertaining. I like teaching, but I also like hearing people's stories. I think I'm going to use that line you have where you ask people, if you could give someone advice, what would you give from your life? Because that's kind of one of the things you learn from their stories, right? I'm
serious. The other day, and I won't tell you that this was one of the surprising ones, not the story, but this couple came in, and I mean, they had jewelry galore on it. They looked really good. And I said something, and he said, I used to do this. I said, what did you do last year? He said, I just got out of prison. I said, I beg your pardon. He said, yeah, I was a financier and I did something wrong. So I just got out, served 9 years. And I said, where did you get all that jewelry? He said, I have my ways.
My ways. Huh. Sounds like you're going back in the Jordan. Now I see here you talk about civil rights. You talk about leadership. One of my favorite themes.
Yeah.
What are your favorite? Do you have any favorite topics on leadership you want to jam out real quick? Maybe.
I think that from the leadership standpoint, I think that once again, you have to have a lot of confidence that what you're doing is the right thing and that you have a certain level of humility as well as egotism, because you can't stand up in front of any people and can't be on your radio. When I was a disc jockey, there's a certain level of wanting to be heard to be doing it. But I think that you have to understand that you really know the topic that you're dealing with, that you have to really understand from a leadership standpoint that the absence of change is death. That everything changes every day. The radio changes, the law changes, everything changes. And so you have to be ready as a leader to look at the change that takes place in your media every day, see what new door opens, what that new door does for you or doesn't do for you, but how you can lead your people and teach your people to do the same thing you want yourself to do.
Leading is important. And especially when you're doing as many things as you can. I think let me ask you this, because I've always been curious about this. People are kind of an interesting, funky lot, as you probably know. You've seen a few. And I've always been that leader type. I didn't always used to be that way. I think when I was young, I was kind of a watcher. I was very introspective or introvert. And then when I got my first company, I had to realize you had to be the bossy boss. And then my big mouth part of my life began. But, with juries, you're almost kind of like being a leader for them, maybe, aren't you? I think you're more of a magical figure up there. Yes, you're leading in the sense, but you're creating an environment. Let me come back. So the way you have to look at it is there are people who come in that don't want to be there. Most of them have never been there. They have no idea what's going on. So the first thing they're going to look at is who does the judge and the bailiff look at a lot? Oh, really? You want to be the one the judge and the bailiff look at. Or when you're talking about these jurors are all saying, who's the judge listening to? Who does he give the appearance or she give the appearance? So once again, you're this actor in there trying to win over, and you have to have a level of confidence to do it, a level of belief to what you're doing, and a script that you've manufactured that's going to change, because the witness testimony is going to always change. Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, the words change, and all you need. I don't want to get political. So my point is that people change from day to day, and that's just the way it is.
It's interesting to me. I've always kind of found it wild that I've always espoused this belief system that everybody can be a leader. Parents, a parent's a leader. If the parent is a leader, the teenager is the leader. But everyone can be leaders, because I've had people go, I can't be a leader, Chris. I don't have the CEO title. I'm just some middle management dude.
But you're a leader.
Yeah, but you can lead.
You are a leader.
Anyone can lead, and it's kind of interesting to me how people will follow that. But yeah, I've never heard about that psychology of them watching stuff. It's cool you figure that out.
I think the other thing that you have to do when you're in that position is say, and I tell a lot of my mentorees is, who is it that you look up to? I don't care if it's a minister or president. Who is it you're looking up to? What are the values and traits that person or those people have that make you believe in them? Well, whatever those traits are that make you believe in them are the same traits you need to have and monitor so that the people who are looking at you can believe in that same person. And so it just, I think it's a very valuable thing if you're emulating the truth, whatever that is, and you're going to find the people to do it. If you want people who can speak well or sound intelligent, whatever it is that makes you believe in a person, then those are the kind of things you have to make somebody believe in you.
Wonderful discussion here. We've gone super long, but anytime there's a great discussion, that's how you know it was a good show. As we wrap up, give people your final pitch out to pick up the book and get to know you better on TikTok and wherever else on the internet.
All I can say is that the book is the story of my life as an egotistical person who, for writing something like that, as my wife says, I think you can learn from it. As far as TikTok, I try to teach every day or almost every day on it some method for making your life better.
What a great thing. Making your life better. That's what we do here on the Chris Voss Show. If you want your life to be, we always joke, if you want your life to be horrible, there's other podcasts you're going to have to go to for that. We don't do that. We make your life better. And that's just how we are, because we care, people. We want to see you smile, live healthy, vibrant lives. And you can too if you order Albert's book called On the Road Again, A Truck Driver's Highway to National Trial Law and Business Success, out February 28th, 2025 by Albert Parnell. Thank you for coming on the show, Albert. It's been just wonderful to have you on.
Thank you for having me. I've certainly enjoyed it, and I appreciate you.
And I love how you give back. We all need to focus on different ways that we can all give back. And rising tide lifts all boats. Remember that, people.
I got that.
Think from abundance as opposed to scarcity. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss, Facebook.com/Chris Voss. And you can visit my lowly account that doesn't have near as many action and followers as Albert does on TikTok. I've got to catch up to him now. But, he's on there saying smart, turny stuff. I'm just like over there, I don't know, drooling out the side of my face or something. People are like, look at that. He clearly probably has a podcast. Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. Go to Goodreads. Or never mind. We did that part. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time.
You've been listening to the most amazing, intelligent podcast ever made to improve your brain and your life. Warning, consuming too much of the Chris Voss Show podcast can lead to people thinking you're smarter, younger, and irresistible sexy. Consume in regularly moderated amounts. Consult a doctor for any resulting brain bleed.
There we go. I'll give that a few seconds, Albert.